I'm learning to work the wheels here. Wendy is my mentor, wheel working mentor. Oh boy. Okay. Wow. Who wants to talk Amy Rogers, also in the UK? Defenestraphobia? I never heard of this before. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Me either.
Do either of you know?
I don't. I haven't heard of it either.
No. I just want to step back a little bit and just say how grateful I am that this understanding took away this lady Carolina's need for all that medication, and that she didn't even know what she was talking about, but something shifted inside of her and her boyfriend, and she found a new level of connection. It just shows that, to me, that when we get connected to how we're actually built and how we actually run things, the body works well. It's sort of like, me, always going back to the body, that if we grew up thinking that you were supposed to eat, prunes 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and we wondered why we kept having loose stool. And then somebody said, well, I don't know if you know this, but you really don't need to have that many prunes, if any, and your gut will work pretty well on its own. And you go, oh, really? And you stop eating the prunes, and all of a sudden you're living a regular life, and you're not in the bathroom all day long. You'd be like, wow, this is so great. So I find it so encouraging that she didn't even know what she heard. She went to some weird conference. She pissed Ian Watson off, and still something went in that gave her permission to stop eating prunes and figure out that her mind worked fine on its own. Kind of cool.
That's such a great analogy between the mind and the body. How, yeah, we're designed perfectly. I love that she brought up Dr. Bill Pettit's never lacking, nothing broken.
Yeah.
Wow, if people, well, it's getting out. It's obviously getting out into the world, and it's just what a remarkable change we are witnessing. It's been 50 years in the making. However, like any paradigm shift, Wendy can attest to all the medical paradigm shifts. If we had an astrophysicist on the call, that person could attest to all of the paradigm shifts in our understanding of the universe. And here we are, witness to it. We've witnessed some really, really difficult, hard stuff. People we know who have VCT and electric shock therapy. I mean, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a movie about that. And we know, probably everyone, I know somebody who was very close to me. It's just so sad that, and innocent. It was innocent people wanting to help people who were suffering. And to be able to be in the history of humanity where we're able to point people inside themselves, they have all the answers. Now, will we still need doctors and guides and life coaches and naturopaths? And of course, people who study the intricacies, as long as we all say, hey, this is the best we know right now. And every field evolves.
Right.
So, whew.
Yeah. Every field evolves. Absolutely.
That was really something from Carolina. I like the way you pronounced her. I was pronouncing her name maybe wrong. So who wants to read page 48?
So I'll start.
Defenestraphobia. Go, Mary.
Phobia.
Yes, a nurse. Perfect to have a nurse. Are you familiar with the term?
No, I've never heard of it. And again, I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. For as long as I remember, right back to my early childhood, I had a background feeling, excuse me, of fear, which was just there, sometimes mild, sometimes strong. I held a lot of tension in my body, which was just my normal experience. As a young child, I was fearful of everything: school, nighttime, being in the center of attention, speaking out, even the fun things like birthday parties. As I got older, I was faced with some traumatic experiences, such as a house fire, a sexual assault, a peeping Tom, and an abusive relationship. Gradually, my fear and anxiety developed into a phobia of windows. Windows are pretty hard to avoid, so my world got smaller and smaller. I couldn't be anywhere on my own, especially in the dark. I was constantly having to think ahead and make plans so that I was never alone in a house or a building. At the age of 18, when I got to the point of having to wake my partner up in the middle of the night to come to the toilet with me because I couldn't cope with walking past the window next to the bathroom, I decided that I had got out of hand. So I went to the doctor to get help. I was told I had severe phobia, something known as Defenestraphobia, and was booked into a center specifically for the treatment of phobias. I had several sessions of behavioral psychotherapists who asked me lots of questions about what was going on for me when I felt the fear, when I would imagine happening to me, etc. I was then treated with desensitization therapy, which involved me sitting in front of a window with the therapist, initially for 2 minutes, then increasing the time. This was done at the center and at home between sessions. I was asked to fill out charts to rate my fear on a scale of 0 to 10. The next step was for me to sit in front of a window on my own, again, increasing the time and filling out the charts. It was a strange place, and I remember being made to feel like I had some kind of condition that needed rectifying, that there was something wrong with me, that I needed fixing. I definitely felt a bit crazy. Who in the world has a phobia of windows? I remember one day being warned that I might hear some screaming from the room next door as they were bringing a real pigeon for a woman with a pigeon phobia. My experience there was pretty awful, sitting in front of a window for as long as I could, basically in total state of fight or flight, with my heart racing, palms sweating, and my body stiff as a board with tensions, chest restrictions, and feeling like I might pass out. The next stage of my treatment had to be done at home, as it involved sitting with someone in front of the windows in the dark for increasing amounts of times, then filling out the forms. This was like torture for me. The daytime was much easier for me to cope with, as I could see what was through the windows, but the dark added a whole new dimension of fear. The last part of the treatment was to sit on my own in front of the window in the dark. This stage I was unable to do. I did try, but it was too much for me. My sessions ran out, and that was that. My situation did improve, and my life was getting easier. The fear wasn't taking over as much. I wasn't cured, but I had learned to tolerate the fear. I could feel the fear without running away, and it didn't feel so intense. I had learned coping strategies that helped. I had also which helped. I had also by then become quite obsessed with the self-help world and was learning all sorts of complementary therapies and techniques, including reflexology, Reiki, NLP, meditation, EFT, mindfulness, etc. So my whole life was getting easier. I had lots of tools to use on myself to prevent the fear from holding me back too much. I still had the background noise of fear in my life, but over 20 years of self-development had definitely paid off. Then in 2019, I came across 3 principles, and in a very short space of time, I learned the truth about fear, what it actually is, how I experience it, what it's made of, and where it comes from. The background noise evaporated. I had a huge sense of relief, tension lifted from my body, and for the first time ever, I felt comfortable in my own skin. I had several insights and saw clearly that I had been innocently scaring the shit out of myself for most of my life. I saw that my experience of fear was not coming from out there, but from within me via my own thoughts. On reflection about my phobia, it just made sense. I really believed that it was the windows causing my fear. So of course, the logical thing to do was to avoid windows. I remember when the penny dropped and I sat there thinking, why didn't anyone tell me it was just my thoughts? Now I can see that it's impossible for a window to make me feel anything. A pane of glass does not have the power to create fear in me. There was no condition that needed treating. The torture I had gone through was unnecessary. I just needed to see and understand what the fear actually was and where it was really coming from. Today, it is impossible for me to feel fear when I look at a window. Even if I try really hard to generate that old feeling, nothing happens. It doesn't work because it makes no sense to me anymore. The wool has been lifted from my eyes. Thankfully, this has spilled into nearly every area of my life. Without the heavy weight of fear, I am now able to do things that seem impossible before. I am so deeply grateful to keep seeing this more and more.
A little portion there I'd love to read a second time. Is that okay with everybody? It was just so powerful.
Sure.
I had a huge sense of relief. Tension lifted from my body, and for the first time ever, I felt comfortable in my own skin. I had several insights and saw clearly that I had been innocently scaring the shit. I guess the I is a star. I'd been scaring the shit out of myself for most of my life. I saw that my experience of fear was not coming from out there, but from within me via my own thoughts. Via my own thoughts. It's why Sid called thought one of the principles. On reflection about my phobia, it all just made sense. I really believed that it was the windows causing my fear. So, of course, the logical thing to do was to avoid windows. I remember when the penny dropped and I sat there thinking, why didn't anyone tell me it was just my thoughts? Now I can see that it's impossible for a window to make me feel anything. A pane of glass does not have the power to create fear in me. There was no condition that needed treating. The torture I'd gone through was unnecessary. I just needed to see and understand that the fear actually was, what the fear actually was, and where it was really coming from. Thought and consciousness, awareness of our own thinking. The simplicity of it is so profound. Thought and consciousness are the two of the three principles. The third is mind, which is the start of everything, the creator of thought and consciousness, our ability to create an experience. This book is just mind-blowing.
I can give you an example of fear that I had growing up and in my adult life was reading. I was told I couldn't read. I was told I had dyslexia. I had a horrible, difficult time, attending school and doing well in school. I struggled throughout college. And it wasn't until recently, and I mean recently, that I started reading like novels and reading. I can't stop reading. So my whole perspective, my whole thought process on I can read, and you know what? I read, and I'm really enjoying it. It's not like I have to read to, take a test. I really love reading. Reading out loud, I forget it. I would never ever read out loud because I trip over words and I'm afraid. I have fear that I'm not going to know how to pronounce a word or, I'll mess it up or whatever. But being here and reading this, I have that kind of palpitation before I start reading, and then it just disappears and I'm just reading away. So I wanted to share.
It's so interesting you're saying that, Mary. I have a friend, a young woman, she's like maybe 29, 30 years old, and she's an administrator at my church, and she and I have gotten to be friendly recently. We've been in the same small group recently, so we've gotten to be kind of chummy, and she freely talks about when we're in this small group that she has anxiety and depression, and she's getting, I don't know if she's getting treated for it, but she just accepts that from herself. I have anxiety. So I say, well, if it ever feels reasonable, that's what I do for a living, is I help people with their psychological understanding. So if you ever want to, so she's like, oh, okay, kind of polite. That's great. So yesterday she sent me a note in her official capacity, because I'm a deacon in my church, said, this person needs a phone call. Could you please call? And I said, sure. And then she sent back the email as herself talking to Wendy. She goes, oh my gosh, I'm glad you're the one calling them, because if I called them and it's a week before, the person wants to become a member of our church. So I'm the deacon to call them and say, welcome, we loved having you. And she said, I'm glad it's you calling them, because I'm in fear that they're going to think that I'm a real jerk for calling them a week before Christmas, or they think that I'm so stupid for calling them around lunchtime. She had all these stories made up about, and she was, and I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, well, what I've learned over the years is, and I wasn't talking about me being psychological health educator or whatever. I said, what I've learned over the years is, when I say things like that to myself, like, let's pretend you're the new person and you're the girl that wants to come to the church, and you got a phone call in the middle of the day, a week before Christmas, and said, hi, I'm Wendy. We're so glad that you're interested in being part of our church. Welcome. Is there anything I could do for you or share with you about anything? I want to know. So I say to her, would you say, what an asshole calling me a week before Christmas? What an asshole calling me at lunchtime. What a jerk. And she said, no, I would never think that. I said, what I've learned is that we need to trust and believe that other people are kind, normal, regular human beings, and they aren't sitting around judging every call that, like, if you get a phone call, why would you think, what an asshole? Like, that's not what you think. And that's probably not what this person's going to think either. She goes, thank you. I really needed to hear that. So then she said, I really appreciate that. You're giving me a real reality check from my Guatemalan heritage. So she's thinking that she's anxious because she's Guatemalan.
Mm.
So she said, and my
I love it.
coworker is out sick right now. And my coworker, whom I also know, she's always is doing what you're doing, and she gives me a reality check. So then I typed back, and her name, that woman's name is Colleen. I said, you know what? I'm my own Colleen. Whenever I start revving up and start thinking, oh, they're going to think I'm an asshole if I call. Oh, they're going to think I'm a jerk. And oh, my boss really wants me to call them this week. But oh, I said, whenever I start feeling negative and worried, I said, I've learned to take my foot off the gas pedal and stop revving up my thought engine. And I look in a different direction, like, what's the next thing to do at my job? Or I should get a cup of tea, or maybe I should go for a walk. And I said, I'm my own Colleen now. I don't need somebody from the outside trying to direct my little Guatemalan head, right? So then she wrote back, she goes, wow, I'm going to
Yeah.
get some tea right now. So I share that story because both you, Mary, and she are saying, one of the things I put in the email was, ask yourself, is it really true that if I make a call to somebody and they pick up the phone in the middle of the day, they're going to think there's an asshole on the other end of the phone? Is that likely? Probably not. And, just kind of just that pause that says, I could keep going down this negative Nelly track. I could, but I could also take my foot off the gas and look at other options. And so that's just basically what you just said. Um, that I have this thought that I'm, however old you are, you're about my age, I'm X amount of years old, and I can't read out loud because I'll mess it up. And you said, maybe, maybe not. And even if I do mess up, these women won't care.
Yeah.
These people are nice. And so you just went with it, and look at the smile on your face.
Yeah, no, I need,
mean, like, right? There's something, it's so effing simple.
You know, it's so funny and humbling. I love that story, Wendy, because I'm humbled to say, well, depending on the mood I was in, if I got a call to come, do something that in another mood, I would say, oh, how thoughtful. I'm so glad I got that call. If I was in one of those moods down in the
Mhm.
Yeah,
basement,
but
I would be
that's not the
saying,
point. Yeah, but that's not the point. That's not the
I
point.
understand. I'm
Yeah,
making
yeah,
a new
yeah.
point,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
a
Yeah.
different point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can't ever be responsible for when we make a phone call. But
Right.
to determine before we even make the phone call, this is what will happen and it will suck. That's up to me.
Exactly.
The outcome of making the call has no bearing on, they may say, never call me again. You're Guatemalan. I hate you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you know.
You never know what you'll be met with exactly, but it's the stories we tell ourselves that get in the way.
Right. Right.
Yeah, great story. I have a really quick reading story. I think it's cute enough. Is that okay? Do we hit, let's just see. We have almost 20 minutes, and the next story is Panic Disorder by Lily, if I'm saying the name right, Sais in the USA. It's only 2 pages. It's short. I'll read that one, but I first want to tell you this reading story. It's cute. So this dates back about 1986-ish. I'm in Florida at the first training school for the principals, Coral Gables, Florida. And there was another student there, Stuart. Stuart was her husband. The last name, Darlene Stewart. So Darlene, I think she started out, she was a school counselor and she was at this training program. And she wanted to, I guess she got hired. I mean, it was so long ago, the story is vague, but the important part of it is she gets hired to go into a school to teach kids reading. And she goes armed with, she's learning about state of mind, attitude, our state of mind, like Mary was saying, has everything to do with our ability to utilize our intelligence rather than get in the way of it. So she brings cartoon books, right? Made sense to me. Well, along comes funny story. Psychologists with PhDs, like 2 or 3 of them, I think, with whistles and charts to chart time and stopwatches. And she's walking in with her cartoon books, and she all of a sudden feels really insecure. I know nothing about teaching kids how to read. How did I come to be with all these professionals? Well, guess what? This program was being not recorded, researched. Who do you think had the best results?
Yeah.
The kids were having fun. They were
Sure.
reading, they were cartoons. They loved it. They couldn't wait to show up for the class. Can you imagine a kid wanting to be on a stopwatch and timed and innocent? I have to always put that in. Like, we're not downgrading what came before us. Oh my gosh, I've done some really far out things.
Mhm.
Like my first job in San Francisco at the smoking cessation, chic smoking cessation. Back when I landed in San Francisco, it was after the winter snowfall in New England, 1978. That's how I know. So 1979-ish, I worked for them. We would have them wear rubber bands, and every time they wanted to smoke a cigarette, it was called aversion therapy.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Only a creative mind could come up with these things.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it didn't cause them to have to go to the hospital. However, there was a situation where they could have maybe needed the hospital, because there was also a room where they had to sit in an enclosed room smoking cigarette after cigarette. This is a true story. You can't make this stuff up. And I would pass the room and it was filled with a cloud of smoke. And until this was when they thought, okay, now the therapy is working, when the person grew up on the table in front of them.
Mhm.
True story. I mean, only a
Maybe.
creative mind could make something of like that up as a treatment. And I'm pretty sure that they wanted to help people. Okay, enough of that. I get carried away. We're moving on to page 48. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Page 50, panic disorder. Lily Sais, I think that's how
Sounds
you
good.
pronounce her name, Lily, Lily. I
Lily,
had my
Lily.
first,
L-
oh, it
Lily.
is Lily. I think of Lily as having two L's. Okay, Lily, but you know her. Lily Sais. I had my first panic attack in 2011 while driving on the freeway in Los Angeles, California. Prior to the panic attack, I had upped my dosage of an antidepressant faster than my psychiatrist had recommended. I'd been on the upper dose before and thought I could just get back to it. Looking back, I can see the symptoms: loss of appetite, intrusive thoughts, almost a manic feeling I experienced before were now in were an adverse reaction. Right before I had the panic attack, I felt a bit euphoric, like I was flying. And then I had this intrusive thought, oh my gosh, I could just drive off the overpass. That thought scared me so much, and I began to panic. I pulled over, parked, and thought I was losing my mind. I felt a sense of doom and unreality. I called my psychiatrist and I learned I was experiencing a panic attack. I later learned that that feeling of unreality and spookiness was derealization. That panic attack shook me like nothing ever had. And as often is the case, I had panic about panic after that. My thinking ramped up. I'd scan my body and mind, trying to prevent another panic attack. I was already in therapy and struggling with an unhealthy obsession with health, which I now know was health anxiety, OCD, which stands for obsessive compulsive disorder, and orthorexia. Never heard that term either. I was very afraid of toxins. I thought that if I ate perfectly, my mental health would be perfect. I incorporated a lot of ancient healing foods like liver from grass-fed animals. Oh boy. Fish eggs and raw milk. Oh boy. I got everything from the farmer's market. I avoided anything that might be harmful. I made my own cleaning and beauty products from scratch. I tried to make my bedroom like a cave. I unplugged my Wi-Fi at night and I didn't have any electronics in the bedroom. I had blackout curtains that I would actually Velcro so there'd be no speck of light. I avoided the blue light from the TV and my phone before bed. I tried to take the most perfect supplements. I had already been involved in meditation and mindfulness, but I ramped that up as well. Yikes, I should be dead by now, according to this.
Yeah.
I had a long morning routine. I got up early to meditate, exercise, and eat a balanced breakfast. I thought so much about panic, and I often would have a panic attack driving to work. I also tried neurofeedback and hypnosis, which was horrible because I was actually experiencing derealization and depersonalization. So it was really scary. I was so uncomfortable going through it. I did cognitive behavioral therapy, which is known as CBT, after not driving on the freeway for a year. And that was helpful to a point that I could drive on the freeway again, but it was more like white knuckling it. And the CBT was a lot of work. I tried somatic therapy, crystals, yoga therapy, and healers. I went to the Living Centered program in Tennessee where we did experiential therapy, and it was supposed to be like 7 years of therapy in 7 days. Some things would work, but nothing was long lasting. At some point in there, I was diagnosed with panic disorder. I struggled until 2018 when one day I was searching the internet and up popped Sari Taylor. She had a 7-day video series on anxiety and panic, and she sent just a simple video and introduced me to the principles. What I took away was that I was innocently overcomplicating it. There was so much less for me to do, and it was so welcome. My thought was, oh my God, maybe I don't have to do this much. And maybe everything that I'm doing is actually ramping everything up and making me more likely to have a panic attack.
You think?
One early insight was that wisdom got me through every panic attack. I saw that really clearly. I saw how resilient I was and how it wasn't my thinking that got me through it. It wasn't my thinking that got me through it. I think one of you wanted to say something before I keep going. No, I just heard something. So I realized that I didn't have to take my thinking so seriously. If I was driving and I had the thought, is your arm tingly? Could you have a panic attack? That didn't seem so true. I saw that my thinking was transient. I got curious about it, and I would see I could start to feel anxious and have these thoughts about panic, but if I allowed it to flow, I'd have a new thought. Realizing there was less for me to do was so amazing because I've been trying so hard for so long. With less to do, I settled more. I started to see that I wasn't broken and that well-being was truly my default. Before I really felt like something was wrong with me, and when I found Sari Taylor and then Nicola Bird, these two amazing women who had similar experiences to me, and they had returned to balance, it was everything I needed to hear. Being a school psychologist, I felt such a shame that I was struggling and the techniques that I'd been taught weren't helping. My worst fear was going to a mental hospital, but because I knew Sari and Nicola had been and returned to balance, that showed me that there was nothing to fear. There is no point of no return. Pretty quickly, I stopped experiencing panic attacks and I drove with so much ease. There were times I was uncomfortable, but it just didn't seem like such a big deal. That was 5 years ago, actually. So I'm writing this May 2023. Today, I do not experience panic attacks. 5 years later. Sometimes my thinking ramps up and I start taking my life seriously, and I will have that thought, I could have a panic attack. And I am incredibly grateful for that because I see that as a love letter. Okay. I missed some friendly early signals, but I'm getting it now. I have zero fear of a panic attack. And so when I realize where I am, it pops the bubble and I'm present again. I love that. It pops the bubble. When I realize where I am in my thinking, it pops the bubble. I never, ever would have thought that I would see symptoms as a love letter. But boy, do I. Most of the time I see them earlier, like a loss of contentment or a certain feeling in my head. I see them as an invitation to get present. Most of the
Yes.
time I feel pretty good. Sometimes I can take my life and my business seriously, so I am incredibly grateful for the love letters that remind me that life is too important to take so seriously, and I am always one thought away from a whole new experience. Woo woo! Anybody want to say something about love letters?
Nice way of
You
looking at
do.
it.
Mhm.
Right. I first heard that term from Bill Pettit, the psychiatrist in Arizona, Dr. Bill Pettit. Love letters from the universe. the very symptoms that used to scare us, that would put us into a panic because, oh no, we're going to have a panic attack now. Or, oh no, I'm going into my habit of anxiety. They're love letters letting us know, fire,
Mm.
get out.
Yeah.
It's like the inner signal, the GPS.
Yeah, another thing that's just coming to mind is it's another metaphor is, you're driving along and the gas light goes off. It says you're low on gas. Can you imagine if we said, "Oh my God," and we're at 65 miles an hour on the highway and we slam on our brakes, "I'm running out of gas," and what do I do? And you lose control, you lose panic. So you don't look at it as a warning or as you got about 20 miles left, girlfriend, before you're going to run it. So you better rearrange the rest of your day and go. It's a love letter from the car.
Yeah.
It's just a little warning. So when you start to rev up and get this panic, you go, "Oh, I must be thinking about a future that hasn't even happened yet. Oh, I must be, and my cortisol is making me spin out of control. So I think I'm just going to sit and rest somewhere because whatever. Like it's the dashboard telling you the tires are low on air. You might need some gas. Um, Engine lights on, the engine light comes on not at the moment where the engine's going to blow up. It comes on to say, you really need to get this to the station and get some attention. So we don't say to our car, how awful of you to tell me I'm close to losing gas, or how awful of you to tell, like, it is a love letter. It's like, "Oh, thank you, Bessie. All right, we'll get you to the gas station. We'll go get you some air in your tires." We're working together, me and the car.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah.
And sometimes we can't get everything done in that car that we want to, whether it's because we can't afford it or because it just isn't the right time to do it.
Yeah.
But we do little by little to make sure that the car runs. How's that for?
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Exactly. And it doesn't mean you do everything at once, but the fact that you're listening to
And
the
knowing.
car, you're
Yes.
listening to the dashboard, and you're saying, "Okay, I am worried about the fact that I'm not
Yeah.
anywhere near a gas station right now." And so I know I've got 50 more miles to go, but I'm glad to know, and I'm anxious about when I'm going to get the gas. That's very human.
Mhm.
But to get pissed off or to get to lose your shit over the fact that the car's light goes on, that's the pause. That's the little bit that says, "I'm being told that my gas is low. I'm glad to know, and I have no idea where I'm going to get the money to put more gas in there. I have no idea where the next gas station is." That's a very different thought than going, "You fucking car, how dare you tell me? I'm pissed off. Get out, I'm gonna just slam on the brakes and run off the road right now, you piece of shit car, for telling me that I'm low on gas." I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Looking
that's the
at it.
panic attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I like that. I like looking at it as a love letter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can see myself getting pissed off at my car. But when you break it down and you look at the whole picture, and I'm using in the car as an analogy, life in
We all
general.
are, yeah. It's just
Yeah.
easy. Yeah. 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 And the other oh, there was something interesting about getting pissed off about it. You know, it's like your stomach rumbles and you're like, I'm in a meeting. I got to get out of here, or else there's going to be a problem in this chair if I don't get out of this office right now. I think I'm going to have diarrhea. That's a love letter from your gut saying, "Get
Yeah.
out,
Yep.
get out now." It's a love letter. I've had a headache every day for the past 8 weeks. I think it might be time to go see my doctor, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I've been having tummy troubles for about 10 days now. And Lori asked me when I was in day 5 or 6, she goes, "Don't you think you should go to the doctor?" And I said, "I'm a nurse. If I went to if somebody came to me and said, 'I've had loose stool for 5 days,' I go, 'Uh-huh. What do you want me to do about it? You know, like it's too soon. It's not at a
Yeah.
level of, oh, right. But it was a love letter for me to stay home, stay close to my bathroom,
Mhm.
go to bed, only
Mhm.
drink water and rice and toast. I wasn't eating cruciferous vegetables, right?
Mhm.
So we were working together. And that's what people are learning with the principles is work together with these love letters that come from our mind as opposed to chasing them and thinking we're broken and it's bad news. It isn't bad news. It's just let's work on this. You're going close to the shoulder of the road. Pull back in the middle. You're getting too close to the edge. It's just working.
Yeah. It's like a reminder that we've got wisdom.
Mhm.
We've got wisdom. So really, the thing to do is the reverse of what we've kind of been conditioned to do, which is get upset about whatever upsetting thing is on our mind because it looks like reality.
Mhm.
That's why Sid spoke about principles of thought and consciousness. They are what give us a sense of reality here. We're aware of what we think. But to know that it's a love letter, it's letting you know, calm down so that you can work with wisdom.
Mhm.
Working with your personal scary thoughts is not going to be a good outcome. But if you calm down, wait for wisdom, wisdom will guide you perfectly. The inner GPS, right? We've
Mhm.
all got an inner GPS. It's just learning, like Sid would say, it's like having the rudder of your own ship where you learn how to navigate with so much more peace and ease. It's not like we're not Pollyannas, we're not shoving things under the carpet, we're not saying, oh, the gas light went on, I'm running out of gas, okay, no big deal, whatever happens, happens. No, we know. Okay, let's
Yeah,
find out closest gas
that could be,
station.
that's right. That could be an option too, where, if we take the gas light on the dashboard and ignore it, as Hannah often says, is you ignore me now, I'm going to get louder the next time. I'm going to get more interesting the next time. And if you have to have a full-blown panic attack where you're laying on the floor sucking your thumb because your body's in overdrive and your body's been trying to tell you with little bumps in anxiety or whatever, and you just keep ignoring it and plowing through and pressing through. And, if you ignore the little love letters, there's going to be 20,000 bouquets of roses show up at your door, whatever. Right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. Oh, here we are, 2 minutes to the end, and I'm just going to say that the next chapter is by Lou Ashby, also in the UK. Anybody run across Lou anywhere in an online program or YouTube?
By
Me
the
either.
way,
Yeah.
Lily Sais, Lily Sais has a wonderful Instagram presence where she talks about the principles all the time. She's a wonderful coach. She's very brilliant. She's a great communicator. So if you look up Lily Sais on Instagram, you'll really enjoy her stuff.
Oh, great. I'll make myself a note to write that in the comment on this video. I'm running out of note papers. IG. Yeah. So the next one is, got that down. Page 52, GAD, which stands for Generalized Anxiety Syndrome. And that's only a page and a half, so we'll probably get through 2 chapters next time also, which is always Wednesday at 1:00, and everybody's invited to join us.
Yeah. So the
So
next
next
two
Wednesday-
Wednesdays are out. They're both holidays.
Christmas.
Oh,
Christmas and
right.
New
I
Year's
was
Day.
thinking Thursday was Christmas. Wednesday is Christmas. Thank
Yeah.
you. I was
Yeah.
just noticing that yesterday. Usually, I remember Christmas falling on a Thursday, but it's always the 25th, which doesn't always
Okay.
fall on a Thursday. So we're not going to be doing this next Wednesday.
January,
week
Unless
after.
anybody wants to
Or the
do it
week-
with me.
Or
Or
the
the
week after.
following is New Year's. So we'll
Okay.
have a 2-week break.
January 8th.
Unless anybody wants to record with me, let me know in a text, because I don't have any plans currently, except maybe I'll do a soup kitchen if I'm not too late. Every year I'm too late to, they're filled. But anyway, too late to help out, you know. Yeah. So generalized anxiety disorder. And after that is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, by Samantha Miller. Yeah, and you know, I know she mentioned Nicola Bird,
I
also in the
actually have a-
UK.
I have a meeting at 2, so I'm gonna take off.
Yeah, I
Oh,
gotta
great,
go
Wendy.
too. Bye.
We're gonna go. Stop the record.
All right.
Okay, I'll
Take
I'll
care.
stop the recording. Bye, everybody. Have
We'll
a
see you
great
Tuesday.
Christmas. Great Christmas, great New Year.
Happy
See
holidays,
you.
everybody. Bye.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays. Bye. Stop recording.